What I did is I always dreamed. I always knew I was like, I was going to be a millionaire. I was always going to be successful. You see that guy, he made 2 million. You see that guy, he made 100. You call rich people and you ask them for money. I said, what? Write that down. When life hits you hard, just think, I'm only one call away from changing my life. You have to build a team.
This is the session with Jan Fowl. So I just want to make a brief introduction myself, if I can, Jan, because I know you want to get going here. But I just want you guys to know who Jan is, why I had him come on as a guest speaker for all of you guys and the phone warriors in general. Jan and I go back way back, like back from our finance days, Wall Street days, and everything like that. And one of the things that reasons why is I've never seen someone ever, and this is when we were in our 20s, by the way, so we were really young, be as good as him on the phones. This is a phone warriors group. We're all prospectors at a high level in real estate for the most part, but Jan, from the finance aspect of things, is hands down, I've never seen anyone close as hard and as finessely and smooth as possible than Jan. So Jan brings such a world of like just knowledge and everything. And man, and dude, and by the way, all the numbers that we posted about you are all fact checked. I can fact check that. I've seen pay stubs, I've seen things, everything. So I know this guy's for real. He's officially made millions being a stockbroker, investment manager, and now insurance. But the whole point is that I fact checked those numbers to me. I was like, are you sure you made $1 million? Are you this guy's for real? And it was all built on cold calling predominantly.
It was.
So yeah. So anyway, Jan, take it away. Tell your story. Let's just get into it.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Number two, I want to thank Dean for giving me this opportunity and his staff, Emily, everyone else, forgive me if I haven't named you. And most importantly, everyone on this call. I'm humbled and I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to be on here. Before I talk about myself, I want to kind of set a framework of what my expectations are. I'm coming from a place of service. I'm here to help every single person in whatever capacity. And the only way that this is going to work is I'm going to need your help. And the way we're going to do that is interaction. So how do we interact and communicate is through the chat, right? So I'm going to ask maybe Emily or something when we open up the lines or whatever for questioning, we can kind of get some questions and stuff answered. But just to kind of give everyone my background, I want to kind of, before we get into cold calling, I think everyone should kind of know my background because my background is very important on who I am now and why I'm on here. Originally from Delaware, didn't come from anything, single parent home, struggled, saw poverty my whole life, right? Kind of like you see it all the time. Long story short, there was something inside of me that wanted more, right? And I didn't know how to get there. And I don't know if anyone's ever been in a position where it's like, you feel like life has just kicked your tail and God is, and like, you're like, let me get out of this financial hellhole that I'm in. And all I'm trying to dig myself out. And the only thing that I have is a teaspoon, right? That's not everybody's story, but that was my story. And what I did is that I just kept on trying, figuring things out. And I remember at the time, there was a show called The Apprentice on NBC, where our prior president was one of the individuals who would decide whether you would be employed or not. And one of the things I wanted to do was be on that show just to kind of have validation, because life had just beat me up. I had no success, but I knew that I was good enough. I just needed an opportunity. And needless to say, I applied, never got on, but I eventually had the opportunity to work for his company doing commercial real estate mortgages. And then doing that gave me the opportunity to kind of open up my eyes to see that like whatever you dream really can happen, right? And as we get older, right? I don't know if anyone here has kids, you have grandkids, you have nieces or nephews. When they're kids, it's acceptable to let them dream. Everyone's like, oh, they're a kid. But what happens is when we get older, people don't want to dream anymore. It's like, it's foolish. So what I did is I always dreamed. I always knew I was like, I was going to be a millionaire. I was always going to be successful. I just didn't know what happened. So financial crisis happens. One of my buddies was like, hey, this was during the time Pursuit of Happiness came out. and then the movie with Will Smith. And he was like, hey, you ever think about being a stockbroker? I'm like, dude, I don't have a college degree. I don't know anything about stocks. Like, I heard about it. Like, and he's like, I'm going to set you up on an interview. And I remember going in this interview, it was in New York City. I'm a country boy looking in this office building. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm a country boy going in this big office, and I'm walking in the same suit that I wore on Sundays. I only had one suit, wore the same suit, Sunday church, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? The only time it didn't get worn was on Saturday because I was pressing it for Sunday church and then to go back to work, right? So I go into this office, right? And I literally, just like in the movie when Will Smith, who portrays Chris Gardner, and he gets this chill over his body, and he says, "This is it," right? I saw people from all walks of life, all races, all culture. It doesn't matter, make money. And you know what they had? They had a phone. That was a great equalizer. It didn't matter what you looked like. It didn't matter your gender. It didn't matter where your background was. And I never forget. There was this guy, he pointed, you see that guy, he made 2 million. You see that guy, he made 100. I was like, he. And then I'm like, so what is a stockbroker? Somebody tell me what a stock. I seen it on the movie. He was like, listen, all you have to do is this. You call rich people and you ask them for money. I said, what? He says, you call wealthy people and you ask them for money. I said, man, that's easy. I've been begging my mom for money my whole life. I can do that. And as I started going through the training program on Wall Street, what ended up happening is that I was in a training room. Literally, I'm telling you, I can't make this up. Dean validates everything. My story is literally like Pursuit of Happiness. I was in this training class. Again, I'm not a college graduate, and Harvard, Yale, all these guys that have caddy during the summer, have resources, right? I'm just a kid, I have no money. I'm trying to listen. I just want an opportunity to work on Wall Street. And I said, I'm like, how am I going to beat these guys? Right? These guys have a network to go to. How am I going to beat these guys? You know what I did? I worked my mother freaking tail off. I was the first person in the office. I got in at 7 a.m. and I left at 10 o'clock at night. I went to another firm after that. I met Dean. Dean and I were in the same training program, right? Dean and I created this bond, right? And this is a beautiful thing that you guys are on right now with this Facebook group, because guess what? Now there's automatic dialers. You can hit a button and then it automatically dials. No, I was literally picking up the phone, and I was able to figure out a way where there's no dial tone. So instead of me hanging up the phone every single time, I had the phone here and I would just hang up. And I will never forget, someone said something to me. They said, you're only one call away from changing your life. I want y'all to write that down. It's very important. You're only one call away from changing your life. Write that down. When life hits you hard, just think, I'm only one call away from changing my life. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And on Wall Street, there was a thing, right? I kept on hearing these stories, how one person will call and they met this multi-millionaire, and this guy just sent them a lot of money, and then they were able to start managing their money and it changed their lives. And then they got in this, they started living this life. They got out of poverty. They got out of this. And typically, over 80% of the time with stockbrokers, you would get your millionaire your first year. Guess what? Took me 5 years to find my one. It didn't mean that I didn't find millionaires that I clicked with, right? And I will never forget this guy. His name was, I wrote it down, Aaron Cohen. Aaron Cohen. This guy was a guy who was very humble, didn't even know, I didn't even think he had money. Long story short, that guy ended up sending me millions in my career, changing my life. I was able to get whatever I wanted, live however I wanted to live. And I was able to, when he passed away, he was on his deathbed. I remember he didn't want to tell me he was passing away. And there was something that I would do on Wall Street. If I didn't hear from my client, I would Google them. And that was unfortunately the way that I found out that they would pass away. And I found out that Aaron ended up passing away. I went to his funeral, flew from New York to LA, literally found out by going on Google, finding out the funeral was the next day, booked the same day, went to LA. I didn't even realize this. Listen, this guy was worth $500 million, all from a cold call. All from a cold call. Leads are very cheap, right? So it's not just about cold calling. It's about also being able to have the skill set to be able to talk to people and convey, right? The reason I've been able to raise close to hundreds of millions of dollars on Wall Street when I was in finance was because I was able to take the most complex things and simplify it. A majority of the time when I hear people cold calling, you don't sound personal. You don't sound personal, right? One of the things that I would do when I would hire people to work on my team, right? And again, right, and that's another thing I'm going to talk about as well, is that everyone sounds scripted. So there were certain things that you can do. Tony Robbins talks about this, that you can kind of do psychologically, like physically, to kind of change your mental state and also how you speak to people. So the first thing you do, guess what? Go to CVS, go to the dollar store, buy a little mirror, put it in front of you. And when you're calling, look at yourself when you're talking. Are you angry? You're able to see how you look. Are you smiling? Are you sounding customer service-y? Whatever. Hi, I'm happy to take. Yes, I'm here. Yeah, have you ever thought about selling your house? Oh, you have? Okay, great. Look, no. Stop. You're bringing value. And I think sometimes, right, because we're so used to being sold, we forget that as salespeople and saleswomen, salesmen, we are providing a value, right? If your job is just to make money, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to make it, because there's a guy who struggled and came from nothing and all he focused about was making money. I didn't make it. But when I started focusing on helping people and truly getting to know what they needed, and I was able to provide that, everything else happened. So Jan, what was the switch? I'll tell you what the switch is. Doing little things. Go to the dollar store, get a mirror in front of you. How are you sounding when you talk? The second thing that I'm going to tell you to do, put someone personal. If you were on your deathbed and you only had to choose one person, who would it be? Who would it be? Don't answer it, just who would it be? Put that person next to you. Mine's my mom. I put her right next to the thing. I talk to her every day. When I'm on the phone and somebody tells me, go screw myself, go F your mother, go do this, go do that, I don't care. Next call. I don't take things personal. Because why? Because I put in the hours, right? I'm going to share something I saw on YouTube. I want to kind of show on how you can really, really, truly make a lot of money. And listen, maybe everyone's goal is not to make $1 million, and that's fine. I'm cool with it. Doesn't matter what that amount is. Maybe it's just to be able to have part-time money so you can go on vacations and do whatever. This is not about money. It's about you being able to hit whatever your goals are. And what I'm telling you is about the only way you're going to become very successful at cold calling. You can look at all the YouTube videos until God comes home. You can look at all the things. Guess what? It's going to be a long, long time for you. It's going to take a long time. You know why? You have to find a team, find a group. Dean created this group. If we didn't have that, are you kidding me? Dean and I were literally in a small cubicle dialing for dollars with no computer, nothing, just literally. You have a group. You have Emily, you have Dean, you have Adolfo, you have Nancy, you have Marcellus, you have Anna. Are you kidding me? Find people within this group to connect with. And then from there, like one of the things that we did when we were in the military, right? I remember when I tried out for Special Forces training. I didn't make it, by the way. We always had to have a buddy, right? Find a buddy, right? But also understand this, you better be adding value to that buddy, because if they're performing at a very high level, okay, why should I have you as my buddy? Because, right? So guess what? Maybe it's to book appointments. Well, I'm learning from you. Like, I had to learn things in a very long way, right? One of the things that I had to do is I had to pay my dues. So before, cold calling is not just about calling someone and trying to close. It's also having a sales process, right? So you have to have a sales process. When I get that person on the phone, what am I trying to do? What is the purpose of me getting this person on the phone? Yes, I want them to add me as an agent so I can have a listing. That's great. But at the end of the day, what am I going to say? What am I going to do that's going to separate myself from everyone else? Well, I work hard and I'm a very, very nice person. Congratulations. Everyone says the same exact thing. So guess what? It's your ability, your confidence, your tonality, your ability to communicate and resonate with individuals. And the only way you're going to do that is you got to put the hours in. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say some things that are not PC on this call. Dean told me I could. I'm going to say it. I sacrificed a hell of a lot. I missed vacations. I missed birthday parties. I missed graduation parties. I missed a lot. I literally, I slept in the office because I didn't have a place to sleep. So there's only two types of people in this world, right? And my friend Rico, he's heard me say this. You either in this business for inspiration or desperation. I was desperate. I didn't have any other option. When was it? Go back to where I came from, right? So cold calling will give every single one of you the ability to be able to go to the next level. So connect with individuals in this group. And what we have a tendency to do is like we like to partner with people who are alike. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to get the same result you're getting because that's who you're partnering with, right? If you go to the gym, right, and you work out, do you want to partner with someone who's on the same level that you are? Because you're going to get the same result. That's why I'm saying if you're going to have a buddy system, right? Ray's on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. Guess what the first thing I'm going to do? I need to work late hours. So when I don't want to work late hours, I'm going to find someone on the West Coast. Ray, what's up? Ray wants to sleep in. He's on the West Coast. Guess what, Ray? It's 8 a.m. here on the East Coast. Get up. Let's go. Rise and shine. So now guess what? I'm holding Ray accountable for waking up early in the morning on the West Coast. And he's holding me accountable for working late because he's on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. That little hack, I don't know, is going to be a game changer for someone, right? You just have to put the hours in. And in addition to having the hours in, you have to find a mentor. That was the biggest thing that I had. There was an individual by the name of Dean Kajuras. He was at one of the investment banks that I worked at. He worked at Lehman Brothers. And it was a very aggressive environment that I worked in. And I remember people would get into the office at like 7:30 a.m. and he would leave at 8. And he's like, early night? What? Serious? What? He's like, hey, early shift today? Leaving early? Dude, I was here at 7:30. It's 8 o'clock, right? But part of this also, I'm going to tell you what happened, is I got burnt out. I hit a state of like burning out. So part of this, I'm going to say, use it as your discretion because you can work. And then guess what? Burn yourself out. So over a period of time, as I got older, I'm now 42 and I'm no longer in my early 20s. I learned how to have systems in place and I learned to leverage other people. So guess what? That million, that 2 million, I put that on my back. I was working those hours every single day, missing Saturdays, telling my son I can't spend time with him. I'm not going to hockey practice. Here's the money. I have the money. I'll get you the best hockey coach. But guess what? Right? I missed out on all of those things. But guess what happened? I also had a breakdown. Right? So now, how am I doing things differently? I have a team. I have a team. I literally have a team. Dean, you have a team, right? So now if I can, right? I see Paula on there. Hey, Paula. So, right, you have a team. She has an amazing team. She's like, come on, you have a team. Because now guess what? I can leverage you. Ellie, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. I have you. I have John. I have Rick. I have the Royal Key Group, right? I have Seth. I have Danny. I have Isaiah. I have Daniel, right? So now I have everyone working together in one cohesive unit as one. And guess what that means? I have to operate from a state of humility because there's going to be some things that they may tell me that I'm doing wrong. And just because I'm the leader, that doesn't mean that I'm not good enough where I can't take constructive feedback. So leading from the front sometimes mean that guess what? You're going to be the first one to get shot. And what does that mean? You're going to make a hell of a lot more mistakes. But if you're willing to be humble, if you're willing to course correct, and you're willing to set the environment and say, hey, listen, we're all in this together. I'm telling you, you want to know how to build a big business. I don't care if your goal is to make $50,000 a year or millions of dollars a year. You have to build a team. I'm screaming from the top of my lungs. You have to build a team. How do I build a team, right? So one of the things you have to know, part of cold calling as well, is you have to know how to build a team. And then in addition to that, you have to know your numbers, right? I failed in math, but unfortunately I'm very good at math now, right? So how do we do that, right? Know your numbers. One of the first things that I did is once I started hiring people, everyone had to know their numbers. How many cold calls do I need to get before I get a sale, right? So if you're just starting in real estate and you don't know, right, that's fine. Keep track of your cold calls every single day. And what ended up happening when I started bringing people on board, part of my training program, is that was non-negotiable. That was like, I terminated you if you didn't know your numbers. Because that's very important, because that's the only way we're going to be able to see what the progress is, right? So if I know that you need to make 300 dials, meaning you spoke to 300 people before you get your first sale, we know that your average is 300, and now we're going to work. So that means when I'm at 150 or 275 and I haven't gotten a sale yet, and I'm like, Jesus Christmas, we know that your average is 300. So know your numbers, keep track of your dials. In addition to that, it's 2023. You shouldn't just be calling a random list anymore, right? There are ways that you can now market, right? Like we do advertising on Facebook. We have people opt in, fill out forms, and then we're calling them. Some people will still lie and say, I didn't fill out no form on Facebook. Hang up, next call. But now that's not even cold call. That's warm call, because now they've raised their hand, right? But let's say you don't have the money, right? Jan, if you could do it all over again, you don't have any money, how would you do it? Let's do it that way, right? Find a list. How do I know what list to call? You should be connecting with someone. That's why I said the buddy system, who's better than you, and provide value to them. Maybe you're booking appointments for them first. I don't know, like figure it out. But once they trust you, they're going to start opening up their knowledge and resources. Imagine you doing something for 10, 15 years and someone wants to come out and say, hey, I need your help. So all the hard work and sacrifice that I did, you just want me to give you my advice for free? What are you bringing to the table? They're not going to say that, but that's what they're thinking, right? Find out how to add value in other people's. Stop being selfish. When you stop being selfish and stop thinking about your problems and what your issues are, you're going to start being a better blessing to other people, and just things are just going to start what I call trickling down, right? So one of the things that I want to talk about is like, how has cold calling evolved? You no longer have to pick up the phone anymore. You now have an automated dialing system. Okay. Keep track of your notes. That's very, very important. Second thing, you need to know who your avatar is. One of the things that they did on Wall Street is they taught us, like, they already told us who our avatar is. Avatar is, for people who don't know, is that who your ideal clients are, right? After 15 years on Wall Street, I could tell you exactly who my ideal client was, right? Caucasian male, 55 plus, Republican. You couldn't, boom. I could tell. Farmer, manufacturing company owner, business owner. Like, I knew anyone who was outside of that spectrum, even if I got them as a client, I knew they were going to be a headache. Do you know who your client is? Do you really know? And it's not everyone. You already know. It's not everyone. No, it's not. It's not. And then the second thing that I also learned, right, and this was the guy from Dean Kajuris who taught me, was that everyone on Wall Street, when they were cold call people, they wanted business so bad. They sounded so desperate. Bob, give me a shot for $1,000. I'll go to work for you and I'm not going to let you down. I promise you. But when I got on the phone, I'm like, Bob, listen, I know you get tons of calls like this. Just with any relationship, I know we have to start somewhere. We got to crawl before we walk, walk before we run. Typically on a trade like this, I would start you off at 100,000, but I know you're not an existing client. And if I knew the guy would balk 100,000, boom, he's not my guy, I would hang up, right? But I was just very casual about it. Listen, no, that sounds crazy to ask you right now, but on something like this, I'm asking you to test me out on 10 grand. 10 grand on something like this, I'm looking to turn 20 to 30. And the only thing I'm going to ask you is that you don't ask me out for dinner. Or I would say something crazy at the end that was like very funny, right? And so imagine being on a list of high net worth individuals and you're getting cold called all the time, right? So these lists, or however you're calling, they're getting pounded all the time. How are you differentiating yourself from everyone else, right? So these individuals were getting asked for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. And then you get a guy on the phone who's going to ask you for 100 grand. We never met. I don't know who you are. And then you're going to ask me for my date of birth and social security number over the phone to complete the transaction. Guess what? He listened to my call. Oh, yes, you're going to listen, because who the heck has this much balls and goals to ask me for this much money? And I don't even know who the hell you are. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? I'm Roger from Texas. I own a lot of cattle. Well, you own a lot of cattle. Let's put 10 grand to work. I'm not going to let you down, right? So every one of you have a story, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Again, you're one client away from changing your life, okay? Dov Charney. I'm looking in the chat. Does that name ring a bell? Dov Charney. He's the owner of American Apparel. I cold called him, right? How the hell you get him on the phone? I didn't. I'm gonna tell you, he had 3 assistants. I got to the second one, but I got to the third one, and the third one was like, nope, I know what you're doing, right? So how do you get, so now, but here's the thing, Dean, I was even thinking about this earlier today with cold calling. We had to go through gatekeepers to get to the person to talk to. What? Now with leads, you have a direct contact, you have cell phone numbers or whatever, right? So what I'm saying is that cold calling only works if you work. Boom. You can work full-time, you can work part-time, but you can't work sometime. Right? So if you're going to commit to this, commit to it. If you're going to go all in, go all in. The reason that I was successful in my previous profession, because I was willing to physically die for what I believed in. And people was like, it's just a job. It's like, no, I'm willing to commit to this to become a craft. Anyone know who Kobe Bryant is? Michael Jordan? All right, it's a rhetorical question, right? That's part of the sales thing, right? I'm asking rhetorical questions that you can relate to. If you really study them, everyone's like, oh, Kobe's great. Kobe's a jerk. Rest in peace. His teammates would tell you, Michael Jordan was a jerk, right? But I think you can still be a nice person. But the reason people called him a jerk was because of their work ethic. They thought different. You have to think differently. Steve Jobs, right? I've been around people who invested in the company. They told me he was a jerk. Ashton Kutcher played him perfectly in the movie, right? And I'm not saying that you have to be mean. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to think differently and you have to really go to work. You get a call from my mom doesn't even just randomly call me in the middle of the day. She's my best friend and she doesn't call me in the middle of the day. She knows that my day is structured. People will respect you when you respect yourself. People will respect your time when you respect your time, because you don't have to say, respect me, respect my time. Because you're walking in that state, your people are just going to naturally do it without you saying anything. Okay. Cold calling strategies. I'm going to get into that before I open up the line. One of the things that I would also do is I would make sure that I knew my clients. So when I would call these clients, I knew that these were business owners, right? So they would get in very early in the morning. Sometimes I would call them before operating hours. So we would call them at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I also made sure that I kept copious notes on every single individual and I called them based upon time zones. So for instance, walk with me here. I'm on the East Coast. I called nothing but East Coast leads. As they got to, and I gave myself, okay, it's 8 to 10, right? So I have 2 hours to call all of these East Coast leads. Now I'm going to Central, right? By 10 o'clock, I need to be done with all of my East Coast leads, and there were hundreds of them. So then boom, when I get to 10 o'clock, I'm calling Central leads. Central leads, so they're an hour back, right? If you're on the East Coast. So that means it's 9 o'clock when they're getting there, right? Boom. Calling that. Then by the time I'm like, okay, from 10 to 12, I'm calling Central. 12. Then by the time it was 12 o'clock, I had to be on West Coast leads at that point because they're coming in the office or I've already been there and it's 9 o'clock over there, right? And it's, again, you can't just randomly call leads, put in a lot of hours cold calling and not have a methodology. It's just completely, it's crazy to me. It's like going to war. Whether you want to think about it, sales is war. John, you're being overly dramatic. It is, because you have tons of people who are getting called all the time. Their family members are asking them for money. Cold calling people are asking them for money. And you want to call them and say, give me a shot, please. I'm very nice. Give me an opportunity. Figure out a way to differentiate yourself from everyone else. And the better you're able to know who your avatar is, right? You're going to know how to talk to them. So because I knew that my clients were Republicans, they were in red states, right? And I knew their demographic, I knew how to talk to them. Some of them didn't want to talk about golfing. I can talk about cattle. I can talk about horseback riding. I'll talk about quarter horses. See, these were things that I had to learn. Now, if you look at my demographic, like look at me, like I didn't know anything about horses and cattle and all that other stuff. But guess what? That was just taking the extra step for me to know who my clients are so I could easily communicate with them over the phone, right? Most of you are just randomly calling people and asking people to give you a shot. And guess what? That's going to work, but your learning curve is going to be very, 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 very long. Okay. Am I able to share this? I want to share something here on this screen. I saw this guy on YouTube.
I was cold calling every day, and I did that for 4 years. Super Bowls, Sunday, Saturday. I did that for years. That's literally how I bought my first house. That's how I saved my first $100,000. I made $1 million just cold calling by myself. No VAs, just Mojo Dialer and my cell phone. If you're listening to this and you want a cheap way to find off-market deals, start cold calling. I was cold calling every day, and I did that for...
I'm not even in the real estate game, right? I do insurance and I work with real estate agents and I teach them pretty much how to make over 5 figures a month passively, right? Guess what? Right now, we don't just use cold calling. We have strategies and systems in place to be able to do that. Is Vanessa on here? She's one of my, she's actually a real estate agent, and she's also on my team as a life insurance person. Is she on here?
I don't see the name, unfortunately.
All right. I know she's out of the country. She said she was going to try to see if she can get connection. Let me see here. Okay. So while she's getting on, because she's out of the country right now, I like specifically, I was like, I need you to hop on this call. But just to kind of give you an idea of what Vanessa's background is Vanessa has been in real estate, works in New York City, handles the Queens area. And she came on board when I left Wall Street to start my insurance business. I was in the process of creating a system. And now what I do is I work with real estate agents and I teach them how to work part-time, making 5 figures by going back and adding value to their clients by offering something that's called mortgage protection. And what mortgage protection is, it basically protects the homeowner if they ever got sick and they couldn't go to work and they got put on disability, their mortgage would be paid, right? So I'm trying to get Vanessa on here because her first weekend, she did like 9,400, and I'm trying to wait for her to get on here. But
Hey, Jan, we do have a question though that came in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to say questions. Let's go.
Yeah. So the question that came in was, when do you know you're ready to build a team?
Now. You're never ready. It's like a person who's getting ready to I'm going to get ready to work out. Wait till January the 1st. Everyone wants it. Now, guess what? Here's what I'm going to tell you. That's such a great question. That was so perfect. I'm going to tell you what happens when you do it by yourself. When you do it by yourself, you're on an island by yourself. And guess what? You can only do so much by yourself. And then what happens when you get to the mountaintop? Guess what? You're by yourself. And by that time, you've lost a lot of friends. You've lost a lot of relationships with your family because you weren't available. You didn't do what you needed to do. Now is the time, because guess what? The people that grind with you when you're in the trenches, it's going to be that much more valuable. And all you have to do when you're building a team, just be honest with them. Hey, listen, I'm new to this. I don't know how to build a team, but I know someone who does. Remember I said buddy system, right? Because now it's no longer me. We're part of a team, right? We're now part of a team, which sounds better. Hey, it's me. I'm here to sell you real estate, or I want to list your property, or hey, Bob, listen, I get it. Yes, I can appreciate that. I know where you're coming from. I know you get tons of calls like this, but just so you know, the reason that we're different from everyone else who's calling you is that we have total combined years experience well over 100 years. And I'm not saying that to impress you, just impress upon you who you have here on the phone. Okay. So I can be in 6 months in real estate or whatever I'm doing. Right? It doesn't matter. When you're talking about a team, it's different. So what I'm saying is that now is the time. Everyone wants to wait till they get to the mountaintop and do whatever. Guess what? Build. Just start bringing people in. Everyone has to start from somewhere. I don't know where this ideology came from, where I have to be successful before I can start recruiting people. And then guess what? Now there's a big disconnect, because now they don't think that they can do it because you're so successful.
That's a great point. Wow. So
now it's like, well,
like that.
That's what happened. When I was making $200,000, $300,000 a month living the lifestyle, guess what? I'm like, hey, I need some help. They were like, Yanni, only you could do it. What? I came from nothing. So disconnected. And that's why Dean was my only friend. I'll be honest with you. And then Dean got married. I was like, nobody to have dinner with. No, I'm serious. Start off now. Mm-hmm. Vanessa's going to hop on. And I told Vanessa, listen, I know how to build a business. This is insurance. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. But one thing I'm going to know, I'm going to turn this into, we're going to kill this. But just want to let you know, there's going to be a lot of course correcting, and I'm going to ask you for a lot of grace and patience along the process. The only thing that I'm going to ask you is that just be transparent. That's all I ask, right? I'm willing to listen to you. Just listen to me. Let's build this thing together. And it's not so now when you're creating that cohesive environment, now it's like, okay, cool. You know what? I'll give it a shot. Because now, guess what? When you're building a team, it's no longer what you're thinking. It's now, because most people don't feel appreciated. That's why a lot of us are independent contractors. How many of you worked in corporate America and you provided insight and gave advice to these corporations and your boss, that would literally have changed the trajectory of the company, but they didn't take it. Or if they did, they didn't give you credit for it. Ray, I see your right hand. I could never work in corporate America. I always had an opinion. So what I'm saying is build your team, but also do not be afraid to hire people that are smarter than you, that are better than you, that are more resourceful than you. And that's what I was saying about being a leader. It takes a lot of humble pie, because a lot of us want to flex and I know everything. No, you don't want to know everything. You want to hire people around you who know everything, who feel valued, who feel empowered.
And Jan, can you share one thing that we learned, like basically that you learned as you were coming up and as you broke through? And even though building a team now is obviously your hindsight of like looking back on everything, right? Mm-hmm. What is the one thing that did get you to that million plus a year? Or really, it was always by the month from what I remember. That's how we always tracked everything.
Yeah,
right? So it was like, how much a month are you making as opposed to a year? So it was like, okay, well, did you do 200,000 this month, whatever. But to get to that, you know, what I'm hearing is like a lot of commonalities around details, discipline, organization.
You have to be organized. You will never hit a big business. Listen,
yeah.
If you can make 100, 200, maybe 300 and not be organized. I've seen it. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, because it's all about effort. If you put in the effort, you'll get those numbers. But if you want to hit 500,000 plus, you have to have systems and you have to be organized. You have to, because there's too much business coming in and there's too much admin that needs to be done. And there's too much of these processes and SOPs that need to be figured out. And if you don't have that, there is no way you'll continue to hit a plateau. And I'm going to tell you what happens when you hit a plateau. It freaking sucks. Because now at this point, you're getting frustrated. Why the hell am I only doing $100,000 a year? I can't get past that. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because you probably did it by yourself. Because guess what? If you had a team who started with you, now you're accountable to them. And guess what? You're not going to let them down. You'll let yourself down maybe, right? So to answer your question, another thing too, this may sound corny and cheesy, but I like to use stories. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know when this was in my career, but someone was telling me the story about Captain Ahab and Moby Dick, right? The captain that went out and was going whale hunting. And there's a terminology on Wall Street saying whales. And I was like, what? So I remember one of the partners of the firm said, very few people are willing to go after whales and only whale hunt. I was like, I'm going to be Captain Ahab. And guess what I did? I changed my business. I stopped asking for smaller transactions initially in the beginning. Yep, luxury market. And then I started asking for bigger numbers. So even in the insurance space, I stopped focusing on final expense burial and all that stuff like that. And I started focusing on bigger demographic, people who had money, right? So again, this is all, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Very clear cut, here's what you need to do. You got to put in the hours. You have to have a support system, bring someone with you. What I did wrong is I didn't bring people along with me. Right? At the time I was in a relationship and I felt that that the person that I was with wouldn't understand my grind and my hustle or whatever. Truth be told, whether they did or whether they didn't, I didn't give them the opportunity because I assumed that and I never had that conversation with them. That's why that didn't work out, right? Number 3, right? While you're building your team, just be honest. Whatever level you're on, just be honest. And most of us don't want to be honest and vulnerable, right? And here's another thing I want to say before I open up the lines. If you just recruit 5 people a month, right? And why the number 5? Because I'm making it as simple as possible. 1 for every day of the week, for every weekday. Monday, 1 for Monday, 1 for Tuesday, 1 for Wednesday, 1 for Thursday, 1 for Friday. If you recruit just 5 people a month, in 1 year, you would have recruited 60 people. In 12 to 18 months, you can literally have a business that will more than double than what you're doing by yourself right now. Just off shoot, because now you're leveraging other people's time between overrides, commissions, and whatever else. So I want to open it up with Dean, with Vanessa, and then open it up to the group if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Vanessa.
So, hey, Vanessa.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks, Dean.
So my name is Vanessa, obviously. So I've been doing real estate for over 6 years. I focus in New York. I do Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, and Long Island. So that's my focus. I've always been doing real estate. So I just started now getting into the insurance business. I kind of wanted to do something that wasn't far from what I was doing. So that was my thought process. And I was thinking, let me do mortgage protection insurance. So that's ideally how I got into this, right? So I just started, I got my license. I was working with Jan. He kind of set everything up so we could start running as soon as possible, which was good. My experience from it so far has been really great. Obviously, for my clients that I sold houses before, I do have a good relationship with them. They know me, they trust me. So me reaching back out to them, and offering this, they were very receptive. In terms of me making appointments, really didn't have any issues. I got 100% show up rate. The very first weekend.
What was your closing rate?
100%.
Yeah, that's an anomaly, but yeah. And why do you think that was?
Just because of the previous relationship I had with them, there was already trust there. So it was me just, circling back to offer them protection for, the house that I sold them. So that was a big deal. So the trust is definitely there. The very first weekend I booked 7 appointments, and that was just me calling within like 2 hours of calling, with breaks in between. To be honest, I spoke to them. They were like, sure, not a problem. Appointments were very easy. This is a trial and error. So for me, the New York application is a little bit longer, a little bit more tedious than everybody else's application. So we kind of had to change course because we booked 7 appointments. There's no way we could have done that in one day. But
there's no conflict of interest on regards to selling insurance to your past clients? No, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. So every state is different. So what she did was she actually called the Department of Insurance for real estate and also for insurance. And in her state, there was no conflict of interest.
Yes.
In the state of New York, what about in the state of New Jersey?
For the state of New Jersey, you have to check for the state of New Jersey. But for most states, it's not. With California, you have to check.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Good question. No, go ahead.
Yes. So, we did great. The first weekend, as I said, the application was a little long, so we kind of had to change course. We couldn't do everything in one weekend, in one day. So we completed 3 appointments successfully. And we did about 9,300 AP for one day.
Yeah. You said New Jersey, correct? New Jersey has no conflict as long as you disclose that, right? So
I see. Okay.
You have to disclose, because what you're doing is you're literally, a lot of you have been in real estate for a very long time and you're sitting on money that unharvested money, right? And that's what I kind of worked with Vanessa on, going back to her existing clients and adding more products. And one of the products is mortgage protection, which basically says, hey, listen, if you get a stroke, heart attack, cancer, 1 out of 3 Americans get cancer. I guarantee you everyone on this call knows someone or probably had cancer themselves, right? So what that does is it basically pays their mortgage, and they're doing is submitting an application to get protected. So when it's time for them to sell their home, or if anything ever happens to them, guess who they're calling first? They're calling you. So that's adding value, right? So what we did, just said Segundo, right? Segundo, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Yeah, Segundo, yes.
Segundo. So what we did with her is that we called the Department of Insurance for the state of New York on both sides, and they was like, it's a clear cut, that's it, right? So, and I'm going to tell you, every single client was like, wow, this is something we never thought about, or this is something we've been waiting for. So yeah, thanks, Vanessa. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right, guys, any questions for Jan while we have coming up here? Please ask away.
I got a question here. Really excited to learn more about mortgage protection, the process. Is there any resources you can share, or can we talk later on?
Yeah, so here's what I'm going to do. Give me 1 second. I have a YouTube video that I send the clients. It's about a 3-minute video. It's a cartoon, actually, about 3 minutes. And it talks about what mortgage protection is. And I literally just use this video to explain it to them what it is. And then once I send them the video, they're like, okay, this makes sense.
So then do I need to get licensed as an insurance broker and attach myself to a brokerage, an insurance broker?
Yeah, that's where we would talk. So long story short, the way that it works is that you would be contracted with a life insurance company, a broker, which would be myself. And then what you do is during that time, is that the average insurance agent takes about 30 to 60 days to get licensed. My program takes 2 weeks. If you do what I tell you to do, I have 100% passing rate. 2 weeks. And then in addition to that, all you're doing is calling. And then once you get licensed, you get contracted with every well-known insurance company in the country. Okay. And then very well-known companies, Aetna, Mutual of Omaha, things like that. And then basically what you do is you get contracted. And then basically we just book appointments, and I literally, you go show up in the house, I take over the call. That's all Vanessa did. She booked appointments. She walked in the house, ate cookies and drank. That was it. So, and then that was it. And just so people understand what mortgage protection is, it's completely different than traditional life insurance. Life insurance is that I have a policy, I die, it goes to my beneficiary. Mortgage protection is money that is specifically allocated to paying off the balance of the mortgage. And then also it has what's called living benefits, meaning that while I am still alive, if anything ever happened to me, if I had a stroke, if I got put on disability, disability will not be able to pay these individuals' mortgage. It's not a lot. Doesn't matter what state you're in, right? So these individuals would get the lump sum of what that policy is to be able to pay off their mortgage. And that's something that they have to apply because it's based upon their age and it's also based upon their medical history.
Presumably we can sell other products as well, since we're opening up the conversation to insurance. Is that right?
And what I do is then when I go in, we start talking to them. We also get their 401ks, and we also offer them annuities as well. Here's what I'm trying to say at the end of the day. I want to wrap it we're going to continue. I'm going to put my contact information in the Facebook group for anyone to reach out to me. But here's what attracted Vanessa and how I was able to get her in, right? Number one, I was like, hey, we're going to figure this out. But I said, how is it, right? But again, I had to come from a place of servitude. Like, how am I going to help her? I said, number one, you're adding something that they need. Everyone's going to die. 1 out of 3 Americans get cancer, right? Boom. In addition to that, our clients were so happy just to be even able to get the opportunity to even discuss it. And even if they say, hey, listen, let's think about it. The fact of the matter is, if anything ever happened to them, you're going to be the first person that they think about, right? So when it's time to sell a house or buy a house or whatever they're going to do, she's getting referrals now. And it's not a hard sell, ladies and gentlemen. It's not. It's really, really not a hard sell. Because when you buy a house or you refinance, they get letters in the mail already from people about mortgage protection coverage. All you're doing is saying, hey, I was your agent and I offered it to you. Like, I sold you this house. Guess what? We also offer this. And I work with a team that does this. And they're like, oh yeah, I do remember getting those things in the mail. I just never got around to it. Yeah. It's an easy sale.
And Jan, you'll put your information when I post the actual recording of this that lives on the actual Facebook group in the comment section. Just post your contact information so anyone that wants more information. I know Andrew had a question, Ray, Aubrey, a few others here. So
yep, come on, I'll answer very shortly. All right, next question.
So I say if there's no other questions at the moment.
I got a question.
Okay, here we go.
How you doing, guys? I'm a real estate agent here in Indianapolis. Jan, I heard that you said, what would be like a good opening line? I know you mentioned cold calling. So what would be like your go-to opening line?
Who am I cold calling is first? The avatar. Who's your avatar?
Okay, my avatar is expired listings. Listings that wanted to sell, but for whatever reason, their previous agent wasn't able to get them sold.
That's what I would do. Remember the buddy system? Dean, he's a $1 million producer. How would you answer that question?
Follow your script. And whatever that might be. I mean, I would just go right for with an expire listing. I mean, my recommend, and we all know this, that we coach with Steve Powers. I mean, it is, you have to get an appointment as soon as humanly possible with those, especially in this kind of a market. So it would go a little bit like this. Hey, hey, I was looking, I say this way. I'm looking for the owner of 123 Main Street. They say, yes, great. This is Dean Clark, local real estate agent. I pause on local. Okay. And then I go into I saw your property was no longer for sale. Curious when we can meet so I can show you a completely different approach in getting your home sold. Their initial reaction should be, hopefully he's going to say yes, but it's most of the time no. And then you really have to know the layers after that of what you're questioning from there. And it's closing every single time for an appointment as quickly as humanly possible. That's how I do it, but I can't speak, because obviously for everyone on the call, but yeah.
And guess what? I didn't know the answer to that question, full transparency, because I'm not in the real estate market like that. But here's what I do know. I know a heavy hitter, Dean. So that's why I didn't answer that question. But see how, just being honest, this is what I'm saying about building a team. guess what? If I was building a buddy system, Dean be my buddy, right? So everything that I told everyone on this call about building a team and having a buddy system, you have to have someone who's adding value to you and who you're going to add value to, right? So that was a great question. Do we have any other questions?
I got one more question. It's real quick on the mortgage piece. Since I also know a lot of agents that would be interested in such a thing, is there ways in which through this model we can attract and bring other agents in other markets that would be interested in this, in which those that invited them can also benefit from their sales?
Yep, absolutely. We already have that in place.
Cool.
Nice. Cool. And then I guess, Jan, if there's anything we can leave as we wrap this up right here, and if anyone has any other questions, Jan is obviously a member of the Phone Wars group. He can answer it on the actual homepage on Facebook. If you can leave and just say one thing to everyone in the group here, leave it off on one piece of advice, just something of value that, you feel as we are prospectors, we are not just cold callers, but we are looking for business day in and day out as real estate agents. What is the one thing that you would suggest from your finding everything you've learned in your life to make what you've done and what you have accomplished to share with everybody?
Trying to figure out a way to summarize my over close to 20 years of doing this, selling.
And that pause is very effective.
The very Elon Musk pause right there.
Number one, you have to want it, right? Why are you showing up to work? Some of us don't have goals that makes us wake up in the morning. That's why you hit the snooze button, right? I woke up because I needed it, right? I knew that my mom only had $20,000 in her retirement account, right? When she got out, because she lived overseas for so many years being a Peace Corps volunteer. And if I wasn't successful, how was I going to be able to pay for my mom's mortgage and help her? Right? So everyone has a reason. So that's number one, right? It was something bigger and better than myself. Number two, I loved cars. So I had a goal of a specific type of exotic car that I wanted, and I hit that, right? That was when I was a kid. I hit it. Now I'm way past that. Now I'm focusing on investing and things like that. But I found something to dream that made me want to get up again, right? For me, it was an exotic car. And then after that, it was I wanted to be, race exotic cars, right? That was a hobby that I picked up that I no longer do. So you have to find something that you want really, really bad enough that you're willing to die for. And that may sound very drastic. And guess what? That's the difference between a person who's a winner and a loser. I'm just going to be honest with you. It sounds harsh, but guess what? People who are everyone wins, not everyone's a winner. And winner could be a person who just gets up in the morning and tries hard and makes $50,000 a year. But guess what? They're going in and they're giving 110%. That's a winner to me. Okay. And then the last thing is very important. You have to have a team. If I look back, I ruined a lot of relationships. I ruined a lot of friendships. I just for the sake of saying that I was going to be successful. And that to me is not success. It was lonely.
Powerful.
So yeah, so those are the thing. And anything else?
Cool.
I don't anything else. I'm going to post my contact information in the chat. I thank everyone for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate your attention with, having this phone call with us and the Zoom. Thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate it.
No, I love you, brother. I really do, man. Thank God for you. Thank everyone.